Hi, Bulldogs. Hey, we're going to start a new read aloud this week. It's called Crash. Here's a picture, and it's by Jerry Spinelli. Jerry Spinelli also wrote Ringer. You might be familiar with that book. And Maniac Magee. Maybe you've read that. Okay, but Crash is a really fun book that we usually read together like we did Wonder and Holes. This would have been our last one that we read together, so I thought it'd still be fun. I'll just read it to you. We might do some, talking about it when we get together on some Zoom meetings. So one of the first things I want you to think about is this unique and interesting cover. I want you to think about, maybe make some predictions as to why you think this baby has a mustache. And then you can see the think bubble. So baby's thinking about football. So I want you to maybe make some predictions about what you think that's all about. Okay? All right, so let's get started. Chapter 1, My Name. My real name is John Cogan, but everybody calls me Crash, even my parents. It started way back when I got my first football helmet for Christmas. I don't really remember this happening, but they say that when my Uncle Herm's family came over to see our presents, as they were coming through the front door, I got down into a 4-point stance, growled, "Hut, hut, hut," and charged ahead with my brand new helmet. Seems I knocked over my cousin Bridget clear back out of the doorway and onto her butt into a foot of snow. They say she bawled bloody murder and refused to come into the house, so Uncle Herm finally had to drag his whole family away before they even had a chance to take their coats off. Like I said, personally, I don't remember the whole thing, but looking back at what I do remember about myself, I'd have to say the story is probably true. As far as I can tell, I've always been crashing into people, into things, you name it, with or without a helmet. Actually, I lied a minute ago. Not everybody calls me Crash. There's one person who doesn't. It's just one of the million things that has bugged me about him for years. I still can remember the first time I met him, the summer before first grade, 7 years ago. Then, it was a sunny summer day. I was in the front yard digging a hole with my little red shovel. I heard something like whistling. I looked up. It was whistling. It was coming from a funny-looking, dorky little runt walking up the sidewalk. Only he wasn't just walking regular. He was walking like he owned the place, both hands in his pockets, sort of swaying la-di-da with each step. Strolling and gawking at every house and whistling a happy little dorky tune like some sneezy or snoozy or whatever their names are. And he wore a button, a big one. It covered about half his chest, which wasn't that hard since his chest was so scrawny. So here he comes, strolling, whistling, gawking, buttoning, dorking up the sidewalk onto my sidewalk, my property. And all of a sudden, I knew what I had to do. And suddenly I knew what I had to do, like there was a big announcement coming down from the sky. Don't let him pass. So I jump up from my hole and plant myself right in front of the kid. And what's he do? He gives me this big grin and says, "Good morning. I'm your new neighbor. My name is Penn Webb. What's yours?" And he sticks out his hand for me to shake. I ignore his question and his hand. "Penn?" I said. "What kind of name is that?" "I was named after the Penn Relays," he said. "Huh?" I said. "It's a famous track meet. When I was born, my parents let my great-grandfather name me, and that's the name he picked. He won a race at the Penn Relays in the year 1919. 30,000 people cheered him on. He lives in North Dakota. I lived in North Dakota too, until yesterday. Then I moved here to Pennsylvania with my mother and father. My mother had me when she was 40 years old. I'm a late baby. You're going to be a flat-nosed baby if you don't shut up," I'm thinking. "What does your button say?" I ask him. He stuck out his scrawny chest. It says, "Hi, I'm a flickertail." What's a flickertail? A flickertail is a squirrel. There's lots of them in North Dakota. That's why it's called the Flickertail State. What's Pennsylvania called? The Poop State. He didn't crack a smile. Didn't even know I was joking. He got all frowny and thought about it and nodded and said, "Oh." Then his motor mouth took off again. North Dakota is real flat, where we lived anyway, and there's prairies. My dad says when the wind blows over the prairie, it's like waves like the ocean. I never saw a real ocean yet, but my dad says we're going to go see the Atlantic Ocean soon. My dad's an artist. He makes birds out of glass and ceramics and wood and metal. He can make any kind of bird you can name, but he's the best in the world at prairie chickens. I cut him off. My father's starting a new business. He works 70 hours a week, maybe more. My mother works at home like my father. She makes greeting cards and buttons and stuff like that. My mother works and goes to school, both. I like dogs, but I love turtles. Would you like to see my turtle? No. I have a grandfather named Scooter. He was a cook in the U.S. Navy. I'm an only child. I'm starting first grade this year. Me too, he said, and for the second time he asked me my name. Megatroid, I said. He didn't even blink. He just stuck out his hand and said, "Nice to meet you, Megatroid." Instead of my hand, I stuck out my shovel. He shook it. He laughed. He thought it was the funniest thing since Bugs Bunny. For some reason, that laughing was the last straw. I plucked that silly button off his shirt, dumped it in a hole I had been digging, and covered it with dirt. I stomped it and flattened the dirt with my foot. The kid froze in mid-laugh. His eyes took up his whole face. Then he turned and walked down the block. He wasn't whistling now. I figured that was the last time I'd ever see that ham bone. All right, so let's think some things that I'm going to ask you some characteristics of Crash. So I want you to think of some, and obviously they're doing before and after. So it starts out where Crash Cogan is like in 7th grade, and he's talking about the first time that he met Penn Webb, and it was the summer before 1st grade that Penn moved into the neighborhood. So we can kind of get that Crash is a little bit of a stinker and likes to be funny, and Penn is just more innocent, and what you see is what you get. So we'll see how this goes. Chapter 2. The next day I was out digging again. This time I brought my dump truck along. I shoveled dirt into the dump truck, then I drove the truck out to the flower bed and dumped dirt into a purple pansy until I buried it. In the meantime, my little sister Abby was picking worms out of the shovelfuls of dirt. She was having worm races. It surprised me to see a girl not afraid to pick up worms. But she was only 4 then, so I figured she was too young to know better. I figured in a little while she would be a regular girl and scream if she ever touched anything slimy or crawly. Anyway, as I was busy burying pansies, I kept looking down the street. Maybe it was more than looking. Maybe I was hoping to see that new kid, Penn Webb, hoping to do something else to him. But I wasn't seeing him, so after I buried the last pansy, I hopped into my bicycle and headed down the sidewalk. I had no idea where he lived. I wasn't supposed to cross streets at that age, but I did. Pretty soon the houses and the yards were smaller. I made a U-turn. I was heading back when I heard his voice. "Megatroid!" He was running toward me. He wore a new button. He seemed all happy to see me, which made no sense. "My name's not Megatroid," I told him. He gawked at me. "No? No, it's Humphrey." He grinned. "Ah, are you tricking me?" "Yeah," I said, "I'm a real tricker, but I'm not tricking you this time. My name really is Humphrey." He nodded and snapped out his hand. "Okay then, nice to meet you, Humphrey. I'm still Penn Webb." I stuck out my hand, but when he went to shake it, I snatched it away. I poked his forehead with my finger. "Ha ha, tricked you again." He laughed. "Want to see my turtle?" "No," I said. I pointed at his new button. I could tell it was only one word. "What's it say?" "Peace," he said. "Peace?" I snickered. "What kind of junk is that to put on a button?" I pretended to reach for the button. His hand shot up to cover it. "Ha!" I laughed. "Tricked you again." His hand went away. He stepped closer to me. Crazy as it sounds, I got the feeling he was inviting me to snatch this second button if I wanted. So I did. I plucked it right off his shirt, but there was no hole this time to dump it in. I thought about pinning it to myself, but what did I want a button that said peace? So I gave it back to him. "Where's your house?" I said. He pointed right behind him. "There." I couldn't believe it. "Who you tricking?" I said. "That's no house, that's a garage." I looked at the place. He looked at me. "No, I'm not tricking you. We live there. We moved in 2 days ago. Honest." I still couldn't believe it. It was no bigger than a garage. In fact, I found out since then that it really used to be a garage until somebody changed it into the world's dinkiest house. An old man came out of the place. He waved at us, called, "Hello, boys," and went back inside. "Your grandfather lives with you?" I said. The kid giggled. "That's my father." "Your father? That guy's got gray hair." "Sure, he's 51 years old. He's 5 years older than my mother." I was a late baby. I know. I was a happy little surprise, too. Huh? I was. My mother and father thought they could never have any babies. And then, all of a sudden, poof, he threw his hands up in the air. I came along. They call me their happy little surprise. I was ready to give him a 2-finger surprise up his nose if he didn't cut out all that baby doodle. Seeing the white-haired old guy, father or whatever, made me remember something from the day before. "Who did you say you got your name from?" "My great-grandfather. He named me after the Penn relays. Not many children have a great-grandfather. My dad says I'm really lucky. Want to see my turtle now?" "No," I said. "I'm lucky too." "Really? Do you have a great-grandfather?" "No, I have a great-great-grandfather." His eyes rolled. His head wobbled. "Wow, you are lucky. He's 115 years old." His head almost wobbled off. Yikes! He staggered backward across his front yard, which was the size of a bathroom mat, and flopped onto his back. 115? I could tell this moron anything. "Okay," I said. "I'll see the turtle now." He jumped up and ran into the house. He came back with the turtle. The shell was yellow and brown. "It's a box turtle," he said. He turned it over. "See, here's his name. Thomas was carved in the bottom of the shell. Want to hold him?" He handed me the turtle, and I took off on my bike. "Hey!" he yelled. I steered with one hand and pedaled like a demon up the sidewalk. Then I quick-stopped, put the turtle on its back in the middle of the sidewalk, and called, "Ha ha! Tricked you again." I took off. I stopped again as he was picking up the turtle. "My name's not Humphrey either," I wrote on. By the time I got home, a question was really bugging me. I felt silly asking my 4-year-old sister, but there was no one else around. She was collecting those bugs that roll themselves up into little gray balls. She had them all lined up. She was being real quiet so the bugs would think it was okay to open up. As soon as one of them did, she touched it with the tip of her finger, and it balled up right up again and sent her into giggles. "Do we have a great-grandfather?" I said. She went, "Shh," gave me a dirty look. She whispered, "I don't know. Ask Mommy." It turned out that we didn't have one, but I didn't learn it from my mother. I was staying out of her way for a while because when she came outside that day, you could hear her all over town. "Where are my pansies?" Okay, so we know that Crash was burying the pansies when Penn came up the sidewalk again. So, or I guess Crash rode his bicycle down to find Penn. So we're going to stop there, and I will start with chapter 3 the next time we're together. All right, talk to you later. Bye.